Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Out of Rap. Today, I'm joined by Martin Anderson, who is the co-founder and CEO at Lemon Contact Centers. And I say this pretty much every week, but I wish I'd hit record about 10 minutes ago. It would have been a sports-based podcast, but we're having a great chat. But Martin, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And to start with, is it just lemon, or do you add something on to the end?
Well, we try to use lemon, so we're aiming to be like Apple and Nike, so we'll go with lemon. But Lemon Contact Center is kind of the new branding that we've gone with, mainly just to help people know what we do outside of kind of who are already following us. So lemon's fine. I'll let you go with
that. I really like. I'm not just saying this. I like the choice of name. I think it's definitely one you're not going to forget. Yeah. Where did it come from?
Everyone asks that, and I'm glad you started with that. I always kind of think, and I've told the story a million times, that every opportunity meeting you have, just before they walk out the door, they go like, one more thing, Columbo style, and ask us that kind of question. And I always say, I wish I had kind of a bigger, more expansive answer to it, really, but I don't. It was a Sunday morning, laid in bed, back in 2003. And myself and Leslie, who is a co-founder of the company and also a partner of the business, we're just discussing, we'd already planned, we wanted to do a business. I'll probably go into that a bit more in a second, but what we're going to call it, what can the name be? And we're just spinning names off. I think at one point it was going to be called Sergeant Pepper's with a bit of a Beatles spin on it. So don't know if that would have landed or maybe got sued, who knows. But my background is telecoms, essentially. So back then, or back in the day, I worked for Comcast, became MTL, Virgin as it is now, etc. So I kind of had the thought of Orange, BlackBerry, Apple, kind of all these kind of companies that existed or still do exist at the moment in time, and there just seemed to be kind of a gap for an existing fruit. So we picked up Lemon, and just kind of off the top of our heads, we were thinking of different brand things, Zest, Knows Our Business. We sign off our emails with Zest Regards. There's lots of fun things we can do, and the colours were vibrant as well.
Yeah.
And if people have been to our office, everything's kind of yellow, bright yellow. You can't mistake our brand. So, and it's been brilliant for us, because as you said, it's a brand and a name that people don't forget. And the amount of referrals, people move on over time, directors in businesses, different managers leaving and coming and going. People often do take us with them as well, because multiple companies sometimes they're our best salespeople. So, and the brand is rememberable, it's easy to find. So it's been a brilliant marketing tool, and it was free.
Yeah, and that, I guess that straight away, it's one of those things where you just think it makes sense. It's definitely one that you can't forget, and like you say, you can do so much with it. I definitely think it works better than Sergeant Pepper.
Well, I hate sometimes brands that use acronyms as well. That's really big because Lemon Business Solutions could be LBS, but for me they're just forgettable, and I'm really focused. I don't have any marketing background or anything like that, but I'm really focused on the brand, the strength of the brand, how we sort of communicate that, our tone of voice, what our values are, all those kind of really core things, which really back in the day when you start the business, it's 2003, I was 22, 23, I was the same age. We had no idea what we're doing. Absolutely not a Scoobies. I remember when I was in my teens, I suppose, when kind of the first idea of wanting to sort of own a business or run a business kind of started. I remember reading some of the books back then, kind of before entrepreneurialism became a thing, Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity, and Duncan Bannatyne's book, I think I read back then as well, and possibly Richard Farley, I think, if I'm going back. I remember this being laid there, and the thing that inspired me more than anything was probably reading Richard Branson's book, and when he makes an offer for Necker Island and he doesn't get it because it's too low, and then he gets it later on when they come into sort of financial difficulty. I remember thinking, bloody hell, you can buy an island? You can buy an island, Martin? That's amazing. I want to buy an island. I just found that fascinating. And it wasn't about financial pounds or anything. I just found that amazing that you could create and do these things, and that kind of set me on a journey of just knowing that I wanted to start a business really back then. I remember being at school and then did my A-levels, and I was all right at business studies. I just found it quite engaging. I wasn't particularly focused at school. I wasn't the brightest, but I knew probably from earlier on that I would do all right. I kind of could course through, not a lot of effort, and do fairly well without sort of peaking too high or anything. So, but business studies I found quite naturally easy to do. So then when I was doing my A-levels, I thought, yeah, I just want to run a business. I remember being in a class, and this sounds a little bit awful, so but I'm going to say anyway, it's kind of important at the time. I remember being sat there in a class in business studies with a teacher used to love, and my peers sat around me, and a couple of them, a bit idiots really. I didn't overly think much of them. And it was getting to the point at the end there, and they were kind of talking about universities they're going to, and I was kind of in the same boat. And I remember thinking, you know what, if they're going to university, I'm not going, because I'm not following whatever their career path is, because I actually think I can do better than them. That sounds a bit arrogant, but
no, it doesn't. I love it.
I just feel I can apply this a bit better. So I'm not going to university. And I kind of made my mind up then, and I didn't. And I kind of left kind of college, A-levels, sixth form, and thought, yeah, I just want to be business. I want to start a business, but I have absolutely no idea what, how, and who with.
And that's great though, because I think that, you know, one of the great things about the podcast is people will look at you now and go, successful business owner, you've been doing it a long time, well known in the industry. And here I am, maybe listening, and I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do. And just to hear you say that was you, not a Scooby-Doo, what you were going to do. No, not even the industry, right? You didn't even know. No. Where did the pieces start to come together then from there?
Well, I've never worked in a contact center or a call center. I have absolutely zero experience from the ground. So what happened is when I left my A-levels early, actually, which I probably shouldn't have done. I still did them, but I kind of went back to do them, and I got an apprenticeship because I knew I wasn't going to uni now. And my dad found it for me. It was with a company called Comcast, and it was basically I think the class as a telecommunications technician engineer. So at the time, Comcast, which is a huge American business, had bought the T-Side franchise for essentially cable. Back then, so I started there, and it was a beautiful time. The people there seemed old to me, but probably all in the 20s back then, probably early 30s. You know, they were ancient to me at the time, and they were committed. They loved it. They worked. I mean, everyone you speak to worked back in that team talks about it like a golden era and almost teary-eyed. It was a fantastic moment, and it was full of money as well. That Comcast was throwing money. This is mid-90s, okay, so this is like on boom time. So I started there as an apprenticeship, did okay again, fine. I got the job. Me and two colleagues got a job over quite a few applicants. Worked my way, sort of brilliant apprenticeship, working with the company. I did sort of planning, install, cable pulling. I worked in all different engineering departments, service maintenance, all that kind of thing, and thoroughly enjoyed it. But I landed at the end in what they call there was an NCC, which is the network control room. So basically the job in there was you monitored lots of screens that sort of displayed alarms. And then when there was a fault, you called an engineer and kind of worked with him remotely to fix whatever the fault would be. And it was a 24/7 control center. And I kind of got into there as an apprenticeship. And then the brilliant thing that happened for me anyway is a lot of the, as I put it, all the guys back then started moving on because they were going on and earning fabulous sums of money back then, and even now, to be fair, working in the sort of telecoms and this dot-com sector. So they were off doing their thing around the world and left a gap. So I quite quickly progressed into an engineer within that department, which was fantastic. And it kind of got me into working in that kind of shift 24/7 cycle, answering the calls and working remotely. And that's when I met Leslie. About the same kind of time, Leslie, who's the co-founder, had a similar kind of mindset that she wanted to be a business owner as well. But she'd worked for a Scandinavian company who did nurse call alarms, but they also applied 24/7 coverage. So when we got together, at first we just met a mutual friend and we're talking at parties, talking about wanting to start a business, and that was that. And then we met again 6 months later or so, and got together. And then, we decided, we want to do this. We both want to start a business. We want to do what we're going to do. I have no idea. But why don't we just take what we know, which is kind of working 24/7, answering calls to people, dispatching people, trying to fix stuff, and see if we can make a fist of a business out of that. And that was kind of the principle of how Lemon was born back then. But I think back, like all great sort of entrepreneur stories, we started in a garage.
Has to be.
Yeah, it has to be. I like to think that Sinakul and everyone, Nike started in these kind of things, and it was a garage, and it was above a garage in like a little flatty thing. It was Leslie's mum's place, and we had no heating, no hot water. We just got we didn't even have a PC back at the day. We had a mobile phone, we had a fax machine, had a pen and paper, and a kettle, gas heat to a dog, and we went 24/7 on day one.
What were you actually doing? So had you left your job?
Well, no, not back then. So what happened is Leslie was able to sort of man essentially the phones, and I still work shifts in the control room. So what I did is I worked shift there and came work shifts at Lemon and gave Leslie some time off. But I was thinking about this bank holiday weekend actually, because I remember Leslie working sort of a Thursday to a Monday straight. Like the hours we used to do, but it wasn't, like most people say, it wasn't particularly work because we wanted to do this, right? It was our passion. We were loving it.
Yeah.
Wasn't much of a early teens going out and drinking and doing whatever, but we were both with each other. We were committed, so that's what we did. And those first kind of initial contracts were for local engineering companies, essentially glazers and things like that. So what we kind of said to them is, you divert your phones to us out of hours. We'll answer the call from, say, the housing association, log the details, we'll call your operative engineer, pass the details to them, they'll go and do the job, and then we'll send you a report in the morning and let you know what we've actually done via fax back in the day. And that was the bare bones of the business. And to be fair, it's still the bare bones of the business as it is today.
Did you go out and win? I just want to get an idea of that kind of. You go, right, this is what we're going to do. Now we need to get some clients, right? Some customers. And did you go out just sort of pitching and like, we're a new company?
Yeah, I think, I think the most marketing we did back then was probably in Yellow Pages. Physically, Yellow Pages, you remember? Possibly Yell.com, I think, as well, back at the time. And we just stuck a couple of adverts in there and kind of waited for the phone to ring. But we got a couple of quick opportunities back at the beginning. We had a local engineering company who were headquartered, we're still a client today, headquartered locally to us. And they had sort of 6 regional offices, and they basically were working with I'm going to say Aircall, maybe the old Vodafone kind of service back then. And they were looking to move. And a friend of a friend put us in contact with them, and we went and had a chat and just said, look, we can answer these outbound calls. We can do essentially the same thing, answer the call, log the details, dispatch the engineer, report to you in the morning. By this time, I managed to buy 40 quid PC secondhand, so I had a bit of a database going, an email up and running. So I remember they came to the office, the garage, the residential, the garage in the house above in a flat, and they came and thinking, oh my God, like, how are we going to win us like a business like this? And we had all our friends round. So our friends were all sat in 4 seats or 6 seats we had there, and we had them ringing each other off the phones. We had the graphs going, which meant nothing. I remember having a whiteboard, having a Coca-Cola written on there, and random engineering and just trying to give this presentation that we were much bigger. I guess we always do this, right? But much bigger than we were. So they came, and then we also, back in the day, and then pick up the phone and got a call from a senior manager at the Co-op Group back then. Same thing. He came over, and for some reason, they all took a chance on us. I don't really know why. Maybe they just felt, we were crazy enough to do it, but they took a chance on us, and we started winning those contracts, and that kind of set us off on the route of working in the engineering technical sector, which helps. That was my background anyway, obviously, and also the care sector as well, which are the pillars of our business today. And they're the things that ultimately, when I look back, the things we're passionate about are customer service, and for me, sort of engineering and this care sector. And they're the things that we still focus on. We do focus on. We will continue to focus on because it's the things that we love. And it kind of spiraled on from there.
I love it. There's so much I love about that story. What if you were talking to people doing business studies now? And I think it's great actually. They seem to do it a lot younger. Both our daughter who's doing GCSEs at the moment does business studies, and our youngest is thinking about doing the same thing. What would you say to a class of people doing business studies about that really early period? And it's obviously, if it's something you're passionate about and you're committed to, does that help you deal with not knowing stuff and also making mistakes?
Yeah, I think the dynamics of both Leslie and our personalities kind of helped us back then, because Leslie's very much the dynamo. She's going to do stuff and get stuff done, and I'm much more the procrastinator, the thinker, like the spreadsheet guy. And I wouldn't, if it was me on my own, I wouldn't have done it. I was sat looking at the spreadsheet forever. I've probably just gone off and done something else. And Leslie likewise is very much a doer, but I kind of had that structure. So between us, we came together quite well. I think certainly in those early days when you need that, you need your warriors to go out there and just do stuff. I think also with youth, you had a naivety that we didn't know what we didn't know. So we just kind of thought we could do it anyway, because we didn't realize there's such big knowledge gaps, which you kind of pick up later on. And I kind of we have this saying that, using my kids as well, that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think back then it was just hard work, and just, putting in hours in, putting the effort in, realizing you're not going to get a big win. We weren't focused on a big win anyway. We just wanted to own a business. So the money was kind of a bit irrelevant back then. I wanted to own a business, have an employee, that kind of stuff. So, and I think putting your head down and committing to it, because it is hard. I mean, there are times, back in the day, I remember not having enough money to cover wage bills, like stuff like that. And, funny enough, I've reading books recently. I'm reading Grinding It Out, which is a McDonald's story. Brilliant film as well. And even Shoe Dog, which is a Nike story. And even when them guys were massive, they were struggling to go away, they're living on the floor, struggling to cover wage bills. So I don't feel so bad now looking back. But the one thing kind of in hindsight I probably would know now to go back and sort of tell myself that I was studying business studies would be to have a plan, more of a plan, because I think a dream's one thing and hard work can get you so far, but there is a point when it comes where you actually need a plan to make that kind of dream come to reality, or to take it to the next stage and have kind of resilience and ability to scale and grow. And I think if I'd probably studied a bit harder back in the day, maybe if I'd gone to university, I could have understood this. But actually, there's also an element of actually just being out there and working on the front line and doing all that stuff. It builds that resilience up to actually battle through things as well, and push forward.
And can a plan be as simple as, is it time scaled? So you'd say, right, here's where we are now. In 6 months, I want to have 3 more people on the phones, or what was it that you did? Or because that just happened organically, did it, or without a?
Yeah, back in the day, it just happened organically. I had absolutely no idea. I just wanted an employee and thought, it'd be cool. We have 2 people or 3 people. Like, we were totally made it back then, and it just kind of went on and on and on, really. And you kind of create your own luck. I think again, we had some lucky breaks with contracts, but I think if you going back to a football analogy, if you constantly get in the box, you're going to score goals, and that's kind of how I always looked at it. And it also, when things go wrong, you lose contracts because you do. It's the nature of business. That kind of absolute blind naivety and confidence that something will turn up. Just keep working, and something will turn up. And you know what? They always did. We had situations we lost huge contract, and we got a phone call next day, and we won a contract the same size. it was just bonkers. But I think it was just you get a momentum, I suppose, the big thing. And you start getting good people around you, and they're working hard. There's more good people joining, it just grows and grows. But back in the day, yeah, going to your question, no particular structure, didn't have a marketing line. I only employed a market manager last year. That's how, and a salesperson. That's how ridiculous it was. We just went and kind of did it ourselves. But then you do get to the point where you can understand business a bit more. You've had the kind of frontline experience. You can start to put things in place. We go, right, if I need to grow this much, I've got an average value order of this. I need this amount of customers. I need that amount of customers. I need that amount of leads. And I know for that amount of leads, I need 26 visits to my website. And it becomes very spreadsheet almost led in a way. And that's kind of becomes the business plan. But that should never take away from, the passion and drive of the business. And we've done a lot of work, particularly over the last 18 months, to make sure that those values that we had at the beginning, which we never wrote down or anything because they were just us, but the values we had at the beginning, which we've now sort of managed to articulate and communicate, and now sort of led and influenced the team. We have values workshops with a lot of time with them, understanding what it is to work for our company, who we are, what we do, for good or bad, what integrity means to us as a business. And if you want to work with us, for us, then you've got to be on the same page. Not that we're saying we're better or right or wrong. It's just, this is who we are. And I'm a huge believer in integrity. Our values, things like gratitude, empathy, team, passion, quality, trust. These are absolutely not just words. They're absolutely everything to us. We have another phrase that we use. It's how we do anything is how we do everything. And I absolutely mean that. The stuff you do and no one's there, no one sees, no one's ever going to know about, that is just as important as the stuff that goes out, because your integrity is everything. And I think, from a sales perspective, people buy from people, don't they? It is pure
100%. Yeah.
And I think people kind of get that from you when you talk to them. As you can probably tell, I can also talk a lot. I'm very passionate about what we do.
I love it. I said to my son, actually, when I was at uni, because my mum and dad were brilliant, but I was a bit of an anomaly, I think, if certainly talking to people I was at uni with, that I had to work to pay my way at uni. So I had jobs as working in a factory, a bin man, cleaner. Every break at uni, I was doing something like that. And I said to my son, I was the best cleaner that they had. I was the best person on the factory line. I was the best bin man, because if you're going to do, and I said to him, same sort of thing, if you're going to do anything, just throw yourself into it. It makes time go quicker. You enjoy it more, and generally good things happen. I can absolutely see why people bought from you, worked with you. At what point, because I want to ask about this passion and this drive to set something up. Did you find it hard? You said surround yourself with good people. If you've got good people around you that are they've got great initiative and inventive, was it hard to delegate, hard to kind of go, I'm going to give some of my dream to this person and let them does it then take it in a different direction?
Yeah, it does. And yes, it is. I think for a long time, I think that comes with a bit of maturity as well, I suppose, because, when we're in our 20s and early 30s, I guess it's a very hard thing to delegate, especially because we did everything, right from day one.
Yeah.
I cleaned the toilets, swept the floor, answered the phones. There's not a job, change light bulbs, not a job I haven't done in the office, so to speak. And I think as people come in, it's hard to trust that they will do as good a job as you would do, or you perceive you do, should I say. I think what opens your mind is when you realize that actually, I think there's a saying or something that I've read where if you can delegate a job and they can do it 80% to your standard or to what you do, then that's a job you should always delegate. And I think you start to learn that you can't expect other people to be you. again, for better or worse, and you've got to start letting go. But once you kind of get your head around that, and then you can start delegating, and then you start empowering people, and then you actually, so some good about, but you see some people actually take that and do things you couldn't do, hadn't thought of, and combinations of people working together, producing stuff which you could never have done on your own. You actually think, well, this is probably one of the most beautiful parts of being a business owner. And then you start getting more confidence and delegate a bit more, and you suddenly you've got a management team. And honestly, like, I'm smiling because one of the things I love about the business now, especially probably post-pandemic, it's probably last couple of years been a change, is the team that we have and what they do. I sit in meetings just grinning or laughing to myself, or just utter bewilderment. And we had a management meeting the day, and they're all, all different parts of there talking about what they're doing in different areas. And I'm there just thinking, I remember being sat here with like nothing at all on my own, trying to do all this stuff. And these all amazing people, as passionate as I am about doing this stuff. And it's just like, honestly, my head could explode.
You have to pinch yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I kind of sometimes try to explain that to them and look at me like I'm just crazy. And actually, funnily enough, I remember my head of technology, a guy called Mark, who I actually, funnily enough, was an apprentice back at Comcast the year after me, and kind of known each other. He's now head of tech for me amongst the stuff that he does. He said to me once, listen, you just come with the idea, I'll let the fairies deal with it, and they'll come back with a solution. And you know what? I kind of took it an insult at the time, because what he's saying, and to be honest, I was trying to help with something, I was making more of a mess of it. And he was absolutely right, and it stuck with me because they are better than any stuff. It's my kind of job now to, both Leslie and I, to help drive the kind of strategy and vision of where we want to be in years' time.
Yeah,
and kind of help deliver this to the to the heads, to Jen, who's our brilliant CEO, and then them to actually deliver it. And I'm still learning. I'm still, there's still stuff I need to step back from. But it is absolutely, employing people is the hardest and the difficult time. But when you get it right and you get the people in, oh my God, it's just the best thing ever.
It sounds amazing, and you can just see from your face and hearing your voice just that kind of how lit up by it you are. But you mentioned about there were times, and I hear this quite often, where you're worrying about wages being paid, and you feel that you've taken an idea that was a passion between you and your partner, Leslie, and then all of a sudden it grows and it grows, and you have that weight of responsibility of not just the people that you're employing, but they have families and all of that kind of stuff. How does that not become something that weighs you down?
Yeah, no, it's a really valid point. And the way I deal with that is actually by flipping it on its end. So, and this is a lot of work we've done the last few years, but thinking about the business and the vision. And when I mean vision of actually, back from the day we started the company, but now what is the vision of the company? What are we actually here for and doing, apart from, I suppose, earning a living and stuff? And for me, it's about creating opportunities. And that's probably why I'm passionate about, that we just talked about, but create opportunities for people. Now, I don't just mean opportunities by the giving people, a job and necessarily a career path, but that is a very important thing. But I actually mean opportunities for them and their families as well. So if we can grow as a business, be resilient, be stable, scale up, we can create more opportunities for their career within our operation, giving you skill sets, training, etc. Expand that, remunerate them better, which means that they can enjoy more things, more stability with the family. They can go on more holidays. They can enjoy more personal things and create maybe opportunities for their family and their children that maybe wouldn't have been there. So as much as it can be sort of a weight that, yes, you have got responsibility, actually you've also got the opportunity to make beautiful things happen for all these people. The bigger we get, the more opportunities we can have. And I'm a massive believer in, we don't know, your kids, my kids, people work with anyone. These kids could be the next people who are the present prime minister. They could cure cancer. They're the ones that go. How do we know what they could possibly do? By giving opportunities and opening up, by making a business that's profitable, scalable, and resilient. It's doing that. I mean, if that's not a great legacy thing, to achieve, I don't know what. But it's also opportunity as well. We want to create opportunities for our clients. We want to solve problems for them, which helps them go on and do the things, the targets they need to achieve, and opportunities for our suppliers and partners as well. Because as we get bigger, you know, and we partner with them, and we've got contracts that will hopefully allow them to grow. So that's the way I look at it, and that probably helps, because I think if you could be racked with worry, otherwise, that there's so much on your shoulders. And don't get me wrong, you know, as I said, beginning of the pandemic, like everyone, we're like, what happens if everyone stops paying us? Like, how long can we last? And everyone did this thing, you know, how long can you last with no cash flow? And there were some sort of dark times there. But when those times happen, I kind of always go back to the logic of, I suppose, spreadsheets and structure. We know we are, you know, business is a profit and loss account. We know how much we need to make, we know what we're spending, we know we can cut if we need to, and we can keep the thing going as long as we are on the ball and react. And we will do that because it's our baby, and we're all passionate about it. And I guess that's sometimes where you see big companies drift and fail, because they probably lose their passion and don't focus, and then they kind of drive off the cliff because no one's really been keeping a close eye on what's going on.
Couldn't agree more. Above a garage, getting friends in to help kind of give that the image of a thriving business. And then where was it? Where did you go after the garage?
Yeah, I can't remember how long we were there now, but then we got our own, you know, our first office, not just down the road, and that was a big step. You know, family members like, no, this is free. What are you doing that for? And we were like, no, we need to present ourselves correctly. So, you know, we got a small office, had about 10 desks maybe in it by then. Again, you started winning more contracts through our fantastic Yelp with little square things, which is probably the size of a business card. And then won more contracts. And then I remember back in 2010, actually 2009 it was, same year my daughter was born, should remember that. We got the opportunity to present to a large London law firm, and these were I think the third largest in the world, to do kind of switchboard and back office services for them, and concierge services for them. And you know, these guys turn over billions. It's ridiculous, really. And we were still in this kind of our second office, really small office, and we went down to there, and you know, Fleet Street, this amazing glass place, has on gym, dentist. It's like, what's going on here? How are we in this room? And we presented, and we won the contract. And they came up to see us, and it was like, that gave us a sense of, you know, we can do it. We can win contracts of this caliber or prestige. Even then we can win anything. At the same time, we were still, you know, working with the co-op, and we just kind of drove on from there, really, with our kind of confidence and ability, and knew that people bought into that. We were so passionate, and if they went with us, we really cared about every single call in and out that we made. And we, you know, you'll know yourself from the teams you've led, you don't always get it right. People make mistakes, process, people, technology, things go wrong, right? So, but when it goes wrong, that's what I always say, if it goes wrong, we will fix it. And if we don't fix it, for instance, it won't be for lack of want or trying, and we'll give absolutely everything. Don't really care about the money or anything like that. Just want to know that we're providing the best service, and you're not leaving us because the service is poor. So we'll always try our damn hardest to make sure that that's a thing. And yeah, that was the thing. And then we went into a slightly bigger office, and a bigger office there, from, you know, to where we are today as things kind of grew, particularly in that engineering sector. You know, if you get trapped in a lift, Martin, probably the chance that if you press that button, if it ever happens to you, you might come through to us, because I think we've got our biggest client portfolio of lift companies in the UK, and lift others. So
I'm reassured by that. I am reassured by that now. That's good to know. And I think something you said there just absolutely resonated, was this, it's something in our industry, right, that I can remember running teams, and in a weird kind of way, you look forward to when something goes wrong, or if you get a complaint. I can remember team leaders working for me saying, why do you get excited about us having to deal with a complaint? or when something goes wrong, because those are great opportunities to improve a process, definitely improve the situation for the customer, right? And to turn someone from a detractor into someone that loves you. Yeah. What better opportunity is there? And it's exactly what you said there. Things go wrong, but they're great opportunities. Great.
I think, you're exactly right with that. And I can resonate with that. I guess Leslie, would say the same, because when your back's up against the wall and there's problems, I think back in the day when we had a smaller phone system and things, the phone system would break, the power supply went off or something like that, the air conditioning stopped. They're the times that you come into your element. And God, I love them times. I love it when you're dealing with something that's like everyone else stood there not knowing what to do. You go, right, this is what we're going to do. Let's go and do it. And you take in charge. Absolutely. Your adrenaline peaks. And it's fantastic. And you kind of, you have them problems, month to month, whatever in the business. You have to deal with things. And you have teams now who help that. But you still almost, therefore, create that sense of urgency by your business plan, your growth, right? We need to get to here now. Almost like backs against the wall, you get your adrenaline up, right? We're going to do it, we're going to smash it, we're going to get to this, we're going to grow. We know we need more, relevant department, IT people, developers, resource planning. We need these, we need them because it's probably like, let's get this sorted. We've got something to battle against. So you constantly you're working at that kind of level. But also, I think, like you said, even directly with clients, etc., when you've got problems, the opportunity to turn things around. And you know what? And not that you want this, but when you have turned it around, you build so much credibility and connection, because then they actually then know that when they've got a problem, because inevitably if they're senior manager anyway, they're going to stand as all those problems, they will know they can rely on you to work with them and commit to that, to get it back around to where it should be. And sometimes it's also just thinking about out the box and big gestures and things. Someone's got an issue, you go in, actually, what I'm going to do is, you're thinking I'm going to do this, I'm going to go and do that. And they're just like, wow, you've totally blown my mind. Let's work together. And I think that kind of goes back to the, I mentioned at the beginning about just that passion for customer service. I always, I kind of think back on where I got that. And I always think back in where I've traveled, and I'd love traveling. I traveled a lot. Never traveled as a kid. Never went past Scarborough. Never been to Scarborough. Just drove down the road. But I had a thing, my grandparents used to travel a lot and used to come back, work away, like in Saudi and things and oil and gas, and come back with little trinkets. And I remember looking at it thinking, where do these things come from? And just like blowing my mind. And then I wanted to travel. So during my travels, travel off Asia, Africa, but even places like Disney World. And we're going to Disney World, walking down, the main walkway at the beginning, and going in the shops, and it being like, how can these people be so happy? You walk in and make you feel like it's the best place on earth. And then coming out and thinking, actually, that's a process, isn't it? That's a process. Training, it's process, it's people, it's technology. And then I kind of break that down. I remember staying at a hotel called the Witchery in Edinburgh. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's just next to the castle. Tiny, tiny boutique hotel. Unbelievable. We stayed there when we were quite young, Leslie and I, and the concierge there. I remember the next night we were staying, we were leaving, so next night Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were staying, and I remember the concierge guy was, if you were here tomorrow, I'm going to sit you next to them in the restaurant, because he said, his words to me were, I don't care if you're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everyone here, film seller, gets treated the same. And that stuck in my head. And that level, considering we were kids, right?
Yeah.
We used all our money to go to Valentine's night. I don't know what we could afford. Like, that stuck in my head, of that level, like Disney World. I call it a Disney effect internally, but that level of customer service. Can you make people smile? Emotional connection. And that's kind of what drove that passion, I suppose, that customer service side of things.
I love that. I used to say, because I was an outsourcer, I used to say to my teams, we're entering the opportunity to create a memory. We're entering a memorable moment, time, whether that is a complaint, whether that is a problem solved. But so my oldest daughter was 24. We went to Disneyland, and when she was tiny, well, a toddler, and we were in a shop, and she was carrying some stuff, and we gave her some money and said, I'll go up to the, you can take it up to the counter.
Mm.
and the lady behind the counter said, "Oh, she was talking about the dolls and stuff or whatever my daughter had, and said, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. If you get 2 of them right, you can have all of this stuff for nothing." And they were very, very easy questions, and because it was like, "Oh God, what if she gets it wrong?"
Pressure.
Yeah. And that really intrigued me. And afterwards, I found out about, like, every employee has the opportunity to, they give an agency to do something like that at least once a day,
Yeah.
because it is about creating that kind of an experience. Like, look at me, I'm talking about it now, and it was nearly 20 years ago. And that can be done in our industry all the time, every day. So I absolutely love, how do you share that across all of your team now, that kind of the passion that you have for that customer service?
Again, it kind of goes back to the values side of things. Like, people from day one to start, and even now, as we're working on sort of interview process, things like that, need to know that. I need to have that kind of passion for serving people, and that's what we're all doing, right? We're all just all servants, really, at the end of the day. And then building that in, and just the way the teams communicate and focus, everything to do when you walk around the business, you should feel that oozing out the walls, that kind of caring. And a lot of it comes down to empathy, in my mind. And as you said, that the lady who was serving your daughter, how she connected and recognized possibly that moment where she could connect emotionally with your daughter and make a difference to her and to you guys. She possibly remembers that and talks about it as well, right? She may tell her kids and so far in the future. And having the ability to empathize with people, properly empathize with people, not just say it, which a lot of people do, allow an understanding empathy. And we do empathy workshops within the business as well. Really gets down to what a difference you can make to people in every communication, every connection you have. Because you're quite right, we, as a business, we serve, I think we've got 130 contracts, and a lot of engineering ones, as we talked about, IT, things are broken down, but care, funeral sector as well, but we're really big in. So you're getting calls from people in all different environments, different mindsets, and our job on there is to help them with that problem they have. And it doesn't even matter what that problem is. It might seem to be quite small. Someone who's passed away compared to someone's got a leak, kind of seems the leak seems irrelevant almost, but it's not, because that person's in stress at that point in time, and they're feeling the same, almost sometimes actually more worked up about that. And it's helping them through it. And I always say as well, it's not about treating people how you want to be treated or how you expect to be treated. I don't like that phrase. I think to be honest, I think it's completely wrong. You don't know what the other person expects, on how they want to be spoken to, how they want to connect with, what they're after. You need to listen, active listening, and try to understand them quickly, which is a skill in itself. Because otherwise, all you do is give them an autobiography of who you are, and that is totally the wrong way. I think, to go around customer service and life in general, really. And I think you build them connections, people really do appreciate it. And we don't always get it right, you do make mistakes, but again, don't beat yourself up about that either.
The empathetic approach that you guys deliver helped you win something that I read about that was just fascinating to read, and it's Help Me Angela, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Can you just talk about that, because I thought that was such an interesting story?
Yeah, so we're working with Help Me Angela now, and it's a personal safety application. And so essentially what we're doing is, the app's out there which you can download, and it allows you to request help at a time of need, but also, if you wish, at the point in time, to be tracked, so to speak, or followed as a concierge app might allow. So we could be there with that person as they're going from A to B. And for me, it's all about prevention. Much rather prevent crime than be a victim of it, because the colleagues at Help Me Angela, they can talk really well about sort of being ex-police officers as well, about the victims of crime. And it's always like, why you thought you were being followed, or you thought you were in a situation, why didn't you ring the police at that point in time? We've all been there. We don't do it because you don't want to feel you're wasting someone's time, or really, you feel daft. But Unfortunately, it's then too late. Then you're a victim. Then the police are involved, and ultimately, the police all they're really doing is generally reacting to crime. And doing a very good job of it. So the idea of having this app out there is really to help people in that position, to give them that comfort, support, and guidance when they need to, so they can be on the app. They can click the button and get an immediate call back from one of our team who are now trained as personal safety specialists, who can guide them, reassure them, tell them what to do, help them get out of the situation if they need them, support them. And I kind of think in my head, I don't know if you've ever done this, but with friends and family, but often, if your partner's out or your daughter or whoever, you might say, right, when you get home or you get here or there, give me a call or ring me when you get the taxi, or do that kind of thing. And that's what this application's allowing people to do now. But rather than bothering someone who might feel awkward, or if people don't have someone, right, this application is there and it gives them that kind of angel on their shoulder to look out for them. And I just think, we're so fortunate to, have been working with Help Manage the Team, because not only is it a brilliant contract for us as a business, but to be doing something actually is also brilliant for the general population.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for more. So yeah, it's a fabulous application, a fabulous advice, and a fabulous service.
You and the team are doing great work there. I doff my cap to you guys, because I think when you hear some of the horrible things that have happened, and it's not just the ones that get in the news, unfortunately, there's things happening to let's say mainly women across the country out on nights. And even if things haven't happened, no one should go about their enjoying time, walking about. No one should be fearful of their safety just because they're a woman walking around. And to be able to try and counter that, I think is amazing. And it's great that you guys are doing it. And you mentioned there that the team are all specially trained, right? What does that look like?
Well, the trainer Sarah that helped me on, she came in and worked with the team over a number of weeks, who are now personal safety specialists, and her CV and her background is absolutely fabulous. Working through the police force, 999 control rooms, becoming a trainer for 999 control rooms, then working with the Home Office. She's trained abroad for emergency response, places like Saudi, etc. Her CV is fascinating to talk to. So she came in and trained our team on the same lines as the 999 operators as well, and as you might say, to a slightly higher level. And the training was just intense. Watching the guys in there, they were so engaged, and some of the kind of the case studies and role plays they were doing. We needed someone call the police, because Sarah was running around outside screaming. It kind of got to that kind of level, and what's going on. But we needed to put those operators into a stress situation of kind of what the worst case scenario would be. Touch wood, they will never have to face that, but they need to go into, if it does happen, automatic mode of what the process is to follow. And they it's a fantastic contract to work on as an operator or a team manager, because you're just helping people.
Yeah.
You're just helping. What's more, someone's scared, you help them get from A to B. And it's not just women, obviously, by the way, it is men as well. I kind of mentioned you before, I'm 6'6", but I've been out in a situation, especially these days, you don't know what you're walking into. And sometimes you just having that someone on a phone or having something in your hand where you can easily speak out, let's be honest, would help us as well. And that's not to think, I'm not saying that society's got worse or anything like that over the decades. Statistically, actually, it's the safest time ever to live. Back in the dark ages, we did our eyes shut. So statistically, it's a great time to live. This is just a technology age, no different to how prevention of crime, I suppose, no different to how you might look of having a burglar alarm or locking your door, helping you stay safe. But I think it's just prevalent right now, because obviously, as you said, there's been a lot in the press.
I think you make a really good point about it not just being women, because I think just the option to be able to be on your phone as well, because that diffuses a lot of situations, doesn't it? You see someone talking on their phone, there's a safety element to that right away. So being conscious of potentially, as a man, being in a situation where things could get a bit dangerous, being on your phone must be a real comfort, and knowing that it's a service where you're not going to feel embarrassed or you know, we, like you said earlier, we don't want to be a fuss. We don't want to bother our friends and relatives, which is insane, really, when you think about it. But I think it's great what you guys are doing, and it's been fascinating and actually inspirational to kind of hear your story, hear about your values. I just want to end with what excites you about the future for Lemon, and also for yourself. What are you, because you've definitely got a growth mindset, right? You're constantly learning and finding new things out. But when you look ahead, especially after the last 2 years we've had, what excites you the most?
You're right. You know, a few years back, probably just before the pandemic, I kind of really, someone told me, you can spend your evenings with the most intelligent, inspiring people in the world in these days of technology. You can go on podcasts, you can read books, you can listen to books, the best people in the world and the best professions, everyone you can just access and spend all your night with them. And that kind of like woke me up to almost, I suppose, personal development, I guess, one of the better way. And since then, you know, I devour books, especially on business, be it sort of biographies, like I mentioned earlier on, you know, like Shoot Up for Nike, and also business books like Good to Great, and all the kind of ones that you'd expect. Devour them, especially since I found Audible, because I walk the dog and just listen, listen all the time. I absolutely love it. So, and that's, again, on reflection. I was speaking to Jen LC the other week about this. We just love business. You know, people want to be footballers. As I mentioned earlier on, I was no goes, you know, or a rock star, or whatever. I just kind of go back to the story. I just wanted to own a business like Leslie did, and that's when we got together. So I love learning about business. I love reading these stories and things. So applying all my kind of learnings now back into the business, and helping us become a better business, helping us grow, and therefore helping us create opportunities for our team, our clients we work with, our suppliers, and seeing that there's almost no boundary to that, really. I think has really kind of inspired me. And I think what we see today, you know, we want to be one of the biggest and best in the industry and in our sectors. You know, that is, you know, working with engineering companies, working with tech companies, and working in the care sector. We want to be the best in the world at that, and continue our passion and continue to find that really high level of customer service. And that's where, you know, we've got a plan to get to, and I've absolutely no doubt by delivering that plan, you know, to move a mountain, you start with the first stone. You know, we'll get there over time, and hopefully it'd be nice to inspire others who are kind of at the beginning of that journey and not knowing, you know, the Scooby, what they actually want to do, and not necessarily having any experience in the industry. Not always necessarily you can learn. I can, just a very quick story. I can remember sitting in meetings with sort of senior management of the large businesses, you know, very experienced, like yourself, very experienced contact center people, talking about stuff. I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm winging this here. But then you thought, I'm going to learn that. I'll come out, I'll Google it, I'll learn that. And suddenly, you know, over time, you realize, yeah, you can learn stuff, and you can be good, and you can move on. And there's no boundaries to your goals.
I love it. I love it, because like you, I sat in so many meetings thinking I never want to be in a meeting and not know what AHT means. So I'm going to go out and read about it straight after this meeting. So, Martin, I've really enjoyed chatting to you. It's been great, and hopefully we can chat again, or even come and see the team. I would love to find out and spend a bit more time with you guys. But thanks very much for coming on.
You're always welcome, man. Thank you for the opportunity to be on as well.
Thank you.